Stuck in a rut? Feel like you're living the same day over and over? Have you tried not being an asshole? The time loop film has been gaining in popularity lately. Despite Groundhog Day pseudo-inventing the format back in 1993, it wasn't until science fiction started to run with the idea in films like Edge of Tomorrow, which was terribly rebranded as Live, Die, Repeat: Edge of Tomorrow, or lesser-known films like Source Code, which started to play with the format. Now time loops are everywhere. The best episode of Star Trek Discovery's first season? Time loop episode. The underrated Netflix gem ARQ? Time loop. And don't even get me started on video games. 12 Minutes, Outer Wilds, Deathloop, and Returnal? All time loops. We're lousy with them. So now time loops are all the rage. It's like the new peanut butter in the entertainment industry's bakery. Hey, you know what goes great with peanut butter? Slasher films. I mean, chocolate. Wait, is chocolate like murder? This metaphor may have gotten away from me. Happy Death Day was released in 2017 and is directed by Christopher Landon. Jessica Roth plays the inexplicably named Tree Gelbman, who is trapped repeating the same day over and over, each iteration ending in her death at the hands of the mysterious baby-faced killer. It's like if Bill Murray was constantly being murdered. In Groundhog Day, I mean. Can she thwart the murderer, save her own life, and grow as a person in the process? Get it? It's like tree. Trees grow. Never mind. Let's start with a simple question. What is a time loop plot? Well, it's when a character or characters experience the same day or period of time over and over. Usually there's a scientific reason, like special alien blood, or a broken science machine, or a temporal rift in quantum gobbledygook. Ultimately, it's not important. What's important is that there's a character or characters who can tell when time is resetting. Thus, they are able to affect each loop differently. Usually, the central character has full memory of events, but in rare instances, they slowly develop an understanding of their time loop because of a sense of déjà vu. Regardless, the story usually focuses on their central arc. Are they a coward? Then they need to learn bravery. Are they selfish? Then they need to learn to help others. Are they just an asshole? Well, then they need to learn to chill the fuck out a little bit. The point is that while the world remains constant, the characters begin to change and grow, and we get to see it as they interact with the world differently than they would have at the start of their arc. The central character comes to some important realizations about their behavior and how they affect others. While ultimately they may claim victory over the external forces, it's their internal change that is the true change necessary to break the loop. Unless you're that one episode of SG-1, in which case you're about watching Teal'c get hit in the face a bunch and O'Neill golf into the Stargate. What a goddamn masterpiece. Slasher movies also follow a tried and true formula. We meet pretty young people meet sharp objects. The end. The appeal is in watching these teenagers unknowingly tempt fate and meet terrible ends. Out of the group, one remains, usually a final girl, to fight the killer or killers at the end. The hero usually avoids death because of their likability and or innocence. The problem with the slasher format is that it rarely affords the audience the opportunity to actually like the future victims. Usually they are so one-dimensional they risk disappearing when they turn sideways. Meet Cindy, the airhead. Meet Travis, the jock. Meet Doobie, the sexless stoner loser. Look out for that spear gun, Doobie! But what if you combine the slasher strengths with a format designed to give a character an arc? That way you can have your mean airhead and stab her too. Over and over even. Now the characters have a chance to change and grow while being brutally murdered. Point being, the idea of a slasher victim caught in an endless time loop seems like such a unique and interesting idea that it's shocking we got all the way to 2017 before it happened. Happy Death Day takes a stab at the idea. But how does Happy Death Day follow or subvert the tropes of both slasher films and time loop movies? Well, let's talk about it. Spoilers until this time code, and trigger warnings for the following. Protagonist Tree, she's a human woman named Tree, not a sentient tree. Starts off her journey as a pretty terrible person, and on her birthday no less. Tree wakes up in a strange guy's dorm room, hungover from a frat party that apparently involved her making out with a fellow sorority sister's boyfriend. Tree is rude and abrasive to everyone she meets, and that starts with the strange guy whose dorm room she's in. She doesn't even ask him his name before taking off. It's also pretty obvious that the film is setting up each person she meets through the opening loop as a possible baby-masked murderer. In fact, let's run down the list of our potential red herrings. There's Tim, an overly obsessive dude bro who has had one date with Tree and won't stop pestering her for more. Danielle, the shallow sorority leader whose boyfriend Tree made out with last night. Tree's roommate Lori, who seems to constantly be millhoused in their relationship. Professor and Dr. Gregory, who is married and sleeping with Tree, one of his own students. That guy has a lot to lose. Dr. Professor Gregory's wife, who, with a single look, shows she very much knows what her husband is doing. Needless to say, some people have some very understandable reasons to want to cut Tree down. Look, the people who made this movie decided to call the main character Tree. That is only the start of my Tree puns, and if you want to be mad at someone, be mad at screenwriter Scott Lobel. I'm not going to apologize. Later that night, Tree is on her way to a campus party when she's ambushed by a slasher wearing a mask of the campus's very weird mascot. Tree makes a valiant effort to escape, but as slasher victims often do, she trips all over the place and gets stabbed in the face, instantly waking up back at the start of the day. Some key character details are revealed in the second loop, namely that Tree is ignoring her father's calls because of a distance created from the death of her mother. Also, she is waking up each morning in the dorm room of Carter Davis. At first, Tree thinks that she had a drunken hookup with Carter, but he explains that he only provided her a safe place to sleep off her blackout. Turns out Carter is legit. Yay, Carter. Tree goes through her day with a strange sense of deja vu gnawing at her. But when it comes time to take the same route to the party, she rightly... Nope. She makes it to the party, which turns out to be a surprise party for her thrown by her sorority. Tree thanks her sisters by, once again, fooling around with Nick, the guy Danielle is into. Babyface ain't having it and kills Nick. After a bit of a fight, Tree goes down too. Timber. Time for loop number 3. Tree says fuck it and barricades herself in her room all day. That doesn't work because the call is coming from inside the closet. Her barricade becomes a trap and Tree is murdered for a third time. Better luck on loop number 4. After convincing Carter she's been through this 3 times already, he gives her an idea of investigating her list of potential killers. She takes the idea and runs with it. It turns out that when you're an asshole, lots of people want you dead. This is a fact not lost on Tree, but she starts knocking people off her list. First up is Tim, who after some invasive peeping on Tree's part, is revealed to be gay. His obsession with Tree is a desperate attempt at denying this part of himself. Tree's reaction is great, but unfortunately she's overdue for a murdering. In a montage of murder loops, Tree rules out a few others. Her professor's long-suffering wife, Danielle, the uber-mean sorority leader, and the food shame Becky are among them. But each investigation ends in her brutal death, and waking up at the start of the loop is coming with more pain and lasting damage. Tired of being murdered, she gives up on the investigation. Instead, she tries various forms of escape and evasion, but each time she's outmaneuvered and wakes up in worse condition. Tree even collapses and is taken to the hospital, where Dr. Greg informs her that the continued trauma of being horribly murdered is taking its toll on her body. Eventually, she comes to 2 very important realizations. The first is that she's been treating those around her horribly. She had a lot of pain after the death of her mother and closed off by becoming cold, self-destructive, and hateful. She has deep remorse for how she has belittled and victimized the innocent people in her life. The second, but equally important realization is that she is probably being murdered by the insane serial killer that's being treated at the university hospital, especially since he seems to murder exclusively young, pretty white girls. Hey, Tree is a young, pretty white girl. She makes it to the hospital room just in time to see that he's escaped and killed the cop guarding him. Tree and the serial killer, who is apparently named Toombs, fight in the hall, but an intervening Carter is killed trying to save her. # boyfriend material. Tree gets the upper hand on Toombs, but realizes that Carter will be dead forever if the day doesn't reset. She then says a big fuck you to Toombs and kill steals his target. Pro gamer move. Tree wakes up the next day super happy. She's solved the crime of who will murder her later. She floats through the day, correcting her mistakes. She helps a falling frat pledge, warns students it's about to be caught in a sprinkler, and she tells Tim to be himself and find some hot man ass. She also breaks it off with Dr. Professor, takes the food-shaming heat off Becky, and kisses Carter in front of everyone. Oh, and she does this. Her spree of good deeds culminates with Tree having a heartfelt lunch with her dad. She explains why she's been distant and promises to do better, then leaves with a plan to stop Toombs. She has a final scuffle with Toombs, gets the drop on him, and shoots him dead. That night, she finally enjoys the birthday cupcake given to her by her roommate Lori. But, uh-oh, it's one last loop. Turns out the cupcake was poisoned, and it was Lori releasing Toombs and using him as a cover to murder Tree herself. Lori is also sleeping with Dr. Professor and is upset and wants Tree out of the way. Tree feeds the assaulting arborist a bit of her own medicine and kicks her out the window. Bye-bye, Lori. The day is finally over. Or is it? Turns out it is, because Carter is just fucking with her. The end. Until the sequel, which I haven't seen yet. They also end the movie by hanging a lampshade on its Groundhog Day similarities. Lori as the killer is a good twist that is set up throughout the film. Tree repeatedly refused to eat the poisoned cupcake even though Lori never misses a single opportunity to offer it to her. It's also great that it isn't until Tree has done a whole loop of redemption that she's grown enough to get the final piece of the puzzle. The poisoned cupcake that she was always too mean or too self-absorbed to eat. Toombs does feel like such an obvious red herring that even though two separate loops are focused on a confrontation with him, I was still waiting for the reveal of the real killer. He has no thematic connection to Tree or her arc. She hasn't personally wronged him in any way. The movie might have been better served by throwing that suspicion onto one of the people in Tree's investigation loop.
You hit that.
Hi, I'm the so-called fine vagina. If that's the way that you refer to girls, you and your hand are going to have a very lasting relationship. Have a nice day.
Tree's arc is the core of the film. I feel like it's done extremely well. Most slasher movies have thin characters that can boil down to one character trait. Jock, nerd, punk. But while Tree may start out as the bitch archetype, the time loop lets us get to know her and empathize with her. She becomes fleshed out as a person with feelings, and the knowledge that how she acts is hurtful. That's why it's rewarding to watch Tree start out as this cold, hard, lifeless husk, before blooming into someone beautiful and full of life and color and... Oh, I get the tree metaphor now. I don't know. Still seems kind of wooden. On the other end, though, most time loop movies tend to drag a little in Act 2. There's only so much you can do with the same day over and over again. That's why the best ones tend to add an action set piece of some kind. The murders in Happy Death Day serve to punch up that second act and keep it fun and interesting all the way through. Still though, this is a time loop movie. It follows the same typical format pretty zealously all the way through, but with more dark comedy and action bits. You know, like that one episode of Supernatural. Happy Death Day has some fun ideas, a solid main character, and great comedy. But ultimately, it doesn't really do anything super fresh with the time loop genre. However, its slasher genre flavoring breathes new life into an old formula. It also lets us go beyond the one-dimensional characters that Friday the 13th and Halloween are famous for. Here we actually get to learn about and root for Babyface's victims, while still getting to see them killed by a terrifying unknown. It's like the have your cake and eat it too of murder, which is why Happy Death Day gets a 4 out of 5. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching this review. Thank you for keeping up with the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not. If you'd like to support us further, there's a link to our Ko-Fi below. But thank you so much for watching, and remember, stay safe and be who you are.